evening from London, wrestling fans. I'm your host, Ben Allison, and you are listening to Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast, your one-stop shop for pro wrestling news, insight, and reviews on a daily basis. Last night on Raw, Seth Rollins got himself one step closer to his first major championship in 4 years, as Becky Lynch made her return to take out Trish Stratus. We're going to be talking all of that and more on today's episode, but joining me to talk about it all, Clark Taylor. How are you, Clark?
I'm good. I had my day off yesterday, hung out, got to watch Raw. Not that I wouldn't have gotten to anyway, but I got to catch the whole thing, and it was a fun show. I actually thought all around, but I'm happy to get into it and stoked to be back.
Absolutely. And the first thing I want to talk about today is, of course, last night's episode of Raw was built around two things, and those two things were the two triple threat matches, where the winners then face each other in the main event of Monday Night Raw. We'll be getting into all of that later on. But the one thing that I learned from it was the Raw roster really isn't that deep main event talent-wise. It really isn't. I mean, in those matches, in terms of people who you could say could be involved in a big title match at a big pay-per-view, you've kind of just got Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes. I mean, obviously you could build some of the others up. You very easily could. But they're going to have to do that. The roster feels really, really thin, actually. And I didn't notice it at first. And I think one of the reasons for that is Drew McIntyre, of course, is on the Raw roster, but is nowhere to be seen at the minute. If he comes back now, like out of nowhere, returns after this tournament, yes, there's one huge name who you have for the main event scene. But still, that's not particularly, quite enough people, I don't think. The people who they called up from NXT, they got JD McDonough, a great star. I don't know. I'd kind of be a little surprised if WWE did put him in the main event scene. Maybe they will, and I would not complain about that. But they haven't done in NXT UK or NXT, so that would be quite surprising. Then also you've got the Intercontinental title picture to worry about too, because Gunther over on SmackDown was facing the likes of Sheamus, McIntyre, big names. And now on Raw, there's those big names. There's not even enough of those big names to compete for the World Championship. So I'm actually slightly concerned here. Of course, in this World Title tournament, there's people from SmackDown involved too. But if somebody from SmackDown wins it, I mean, we've already discussed what happens when they get drafted. If they did get drafted, the obvious choice would be to swap them with Cody Rhodes. But then Raw also loses a main eventer. So it's just beyond confusing. And to make matters worse, I don't particularly understand how Cody could actually be in the World Championship title picture. As we saw last night, which we'll get into, as I stated earlier, he got taken out by Brock Lesnar earlier on in the night yesterday, before he could win his triple threat match, Cody Rhodes. Lesnar took him out. And the reason for that's probably because they're trying to keep him away from that World Championship so they can keep him for Roman, which is a very smart thing to do. But it basically means on Raw currently you have one main eventer, and that main eventer is Seth Rollins. I'm worried. I really am worried about this Raw roster. I'm hoping McIntyre and possibly Bray Wyatt could return soon. And then, I mean, you got another two names you can chuck in there. But really, I don't particularly see any main event pay-per-view main eventers who competed last night. Maybe you could rebuild up Shinsuke Nakamura, I guess. But Rollins Nakamura's face versus face, it's beyond confusing. Clark, what's your thoughts on it?
I agree. At first, I didn't think it was the case, but I mean, after looking at the roster, it is thin at the top. At the same time, though, it's weird on paper. There's a bunch of great accolades, right? You have Finn Balor, the first Universal Champion, but he doesn't really feel like that right this second. No. Didn't feel like it last night. You have McIntyre, who main evented, he beat Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. I mean, that's...
Where is he?
Yeah, and we haven't seen him yet. We have Kofi Kingston, who we haven't seen on Raw yet. And, I mean, since Kofi Mania hasn't felt like a main eventer. I mean, and then Matt Riddle is maybe one of those on the borderline. He's challenged for a title before. You prospect wise, a maybe, but not right this second.
Yeah, especially after he
Right.
trended for all the wrong reasons last night.
Now, I will say Kevin Owens has been in the main event of night 1 of WrestleMania the last 2 years, and he is on this roster. So let's not forget that, and let's not forget that, once this tag team title stuff plays out, who knows? That makes Sami Zayn available to once again be in the main event picture, and that opens some things up. But it is kind of clogged by the fact that they're carrying the tag team championships right now,
Yeah. And
which
I don't know when they could lose them
main
either because they look strong.
right, and it main evented night 1 of Mania. Why would you stop that momentum? So you've kind of booked yourself in a corner there. I mean, yeah, I don't see a whole lot myself. Gunther could be a main eventer, but guess what? He's carrying the Intercontinental
Yeah.
title. So it's like,
They're in some real,
yeah,
real issues here.
we're in trouble here.
I mean, the one thing I will say is they do have Braun Strowman, who very well could be a main eventer, should be a main eventer, since coming back. And I'm going to be honest, I have been a Braun Strowman critic at times. I have, full honesty. But since coming back, he's looked fantastic. He's looked better than ever since he returned to WWE. But he's currently in a tag team with Ricochet. So if I was WWE, I'd get Braun to turn heel on Ricochet quite quickly. And then, I mean, if Seth wins the tournament, then you can do Braun and Seth as the first feud. That would make a ton of sense. But it's still about it. We've got 12 months with this.
Well, and that also thins out the tag division. Braun and Ricochet separating too. So it's like, yeah, I mean, I don't even know where we're going there. This could be anything.
I mean, there's Damian Priest in the Judgment Day as well.
I was about to say he's almost stronger in my eyes right this second than Finn. And I hate saying that out loud, but he just is. He's in a good spot.
He truly is. I mean, the thing is, though, he did just lose to, well, as Ignacio says, Bugs Bunny. In reality, Bad Bunny. What I did like on last night's episode is Damian Priest, when he spoke about that, saying, it took the entire island of Puerto Rico to be able to beat me. I like that line. Because he made it seem like, oh, everyone was against me and all that. And it deflected it off him a little bit. I did like that line. But
especially because you'd think in a weird way, like it is with his Puerto Rican ties, like it is kind of a hometown match for him too, and it was, everyone's against
them.
They
pretended that didn't happen. They pretended he was not
like they didn't even exist. But like it's almost that seemed a little unfair in hindsight.
I think is though it's going to be that match got him the most attention he's probably going to get in his career. Yeah. So I doubt he cares. But here I'm going to get to my point right now. Right? Why didn't they call up Bron Breakker? It doesn't make any sense to me. Obviously, now he's in a feud with Carmelo Hayes. But when he lost that championship, why didn't they just not have him return to NXT and instead get called up to Raw? He could have been fighting for this championship with Rollins, elevating him right to the main event scene right away. Now, yes, I don't think he's good enough to be champion just yet. Yes, he's too green. But just throw him in at the deep end. Because so many people have succeeded when that's happened before. And yes, the fans like turn saying, oh, he's being overpushed. Well, guess what? They said that about John Cena. They said that about Roman Reigns. They've said that about tons of people.
They're starting to whisper about Cody Rhodes.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, the fans are turning on Cody. And they're turning on Seth as well. But we'll get into that later on. But now let's just get into Raw. And let's talk about how Raw opened. So, Clark, what do you want to talk about? Cody Rhodes opened up Raw in his ring gear and cut a promo, even though his match wasn't the first match on the show. It was weird. He basically cut a promo about how he beat Lesnar and how he's now got his eyes focused on the World Championship. And then he's walked back. He basically did what Seth Rollins did apart from he did say stuff on the mic. On the Raw after WrestleMania. Anyway, he gets up to the top of the stage, and then out comes Seth Rollins. They have a little bit of a stare-off before Seth laughs and leaves. So I'm like, hang on a second, are they foreshadowing the main event here tonight? They obviously were not. But it was so weird. I don't know why they opened it up with this promo. And if they were going to open up with a promo, fair enough. But have his match be first. I don't get it. Clark, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I also, in a weird way, I kind of preferred him cutting the promo in the ring gear as opposed to the suits, as I've made fun of a few times on the podcast. But also people don't wear like, like ridiculous jackets like that.
Yeah.
So it's equally not that relatable from a babyface perspective. And there had to be an audible called there. Am I wrong? I mean, do we know? As like right? Like that doesn't seem like that was the plan from the beginning. It seems like they
Yeah.
might have switched the matches.
I don't know. They could well have. It was weird. Uh, I don't understand it at all. But number one Superfly on YouTube is in our YouTube comments saying, should they create a Cody shirt that says, "So what do you want to talk about?" As it's starting to become his catchphrase.
I hope not.
Maybe we should do that. Do you reckon WWE would take it down? Probably. It's probably best not to. But maybe we'll mix it up. Maybe we'll go. So what? I don't actually. So do you want to talk about what?
Who do you want to talk about? I don't know.
Who do you want to talk about?
Yeah. What? How do you want to talk about it? So how do you want to talk about it? That's the one.
So how do you want to talk about it? Oh gosh. Oh. I remember a few years back, I created a T-shirt, and it was meant to be like the WWE Championship, where it's not even a WWE Championship, a generic championship belt with like KO for knockout on it. And this was when Kevin Owens was in NXT, and WWE took it down off the fight it was on because they were like, it's Kevin Owens. I think it was a cease and desist, and 14-year-old me was terrified. I was like, oh no. They're coming for me, but
they're gonna send Kevin next. First it's the letter, and then KO's gonna show up at my door.
Oh gosh, but yeah, this Cody Rhodes promo made about as much sense as them sending me a 14-year-old me a cease and desist for a T-shirt saying knockout. But I don't know why it happened. It was a solid promo. Cody he's good on the mic, he obviously is, but certain things such as so what do you want to talk about? I don't understand why he keeps doing it.
Well, and the very predictable say it without saying it. Remember, this was my home during the pandemic. We created.
I didn't mind that. I didn't mind that.
I didn't mind, but it was so on brand, right? Like he was the cheap jabs the other way, cheap jab back. Why not? While he's up, like there's nothing babyface about that.
No, last night wasn't a jab. Last night was an acknowledgement, in fairness.
I don't know.
I hate the digs as much as you do, but that was an acknowledgement.
No, I like the digs. If you're a heel, if you're MJF, I love it. If you're Roman Reigns, I love it. If you're
in AEW, the baby faces all do it because it gets the pop of the night.
It's weird. It needs to be the heels doing it on both sides because I enjoy that more.
No, I do. I would agree with you more, but I mean, maybe I feel like a heel, and MJF kind of did it in AEW. Should just be a big WWE mark. I feel like that would be the most hated guy in the company.
Well, I mean, I think that's kind of what the JAS was trying to go for with the
sports entertainers.
But like, you can't. Speaking of cease and desist type stuff, right? You can't just.
Also, Jericho's like doing insults to WWE on Twitter. So he's in this gimmick, and then
he's not afraid to tweet. That's one thing you can say about Y2J.
Oh,
huge fan, but still.
Oh, absolutely. He has reinvented himself many times. So that is a conversation for another day. Let's move on to what was the first triple threat match of last night, which was Shinsuke Nakamura versus Damian Priest versus Seth Rollins. And this was a really fun start to the evening, really fun triple threat match. And of course, Seth Rollins got that victory. I'm glad he got that victory. I'm going to be honest. I was actually very invested in this match because I was so worried Seth was actually going to lose during parts of it. I was like, no, this is his moment. We cannot have him lose. He did not lose. They made the right call. Very, very fun match indeed. I'm surprised Shinsuke took the pin, actually. I really am, considering I thought they were building him up after their win against Karrion Kross. I'm not going to go in another rant about that match, but that's making less sense by the minute. But I'm presuming the reason for that is because they don't want to harm Damian Priest because they're building him up for a title shot because they have no other main eventers. And they don't want him to lose for a second time in a week. So, yeah, Rollins won the match, and I really enjoyed it. What did you think, Clark?
I was really impressed by Priest. I really was. Like, I thought I thought it would be clearly that Rollins and Nakamura would steal the show
Mm.
in this one. And while at the end they kind of did, and in a way, the finish was great, but I thought Damian Priest looked as strong as he possibly could in a match he didn't win, and that was key. I'm a big Priest fan. I like the Scott Hall-esque mannerisms in the entrance. I like the use of the Razor's Edge. I actually even it's funny because we haven't even really mentioned it that many times, but I mean he was doing the Crossroads, and now he's
Yes.
not,
No.
right?
Yeah.
And then he had the flatliner, or whatever that one was that Edge kind of gave him when Edge was the leader of Judgment Day. But the South of Heaven chokeslam is actually, I think, his best looking move. It's kind of like a combo of a side effect. It looks really good. You know what I mean? It's not the traditional big guy choke slam. I really like it. And then the Razor's Edge being a signature setup maneuver, his moveset looks great almost without that Crossroads. And I thought he delivered a good one when he was calling it the lights out and everything, the different names for it. But the Reckoning, I believe, at one time.
That's it. Yeah, it was Reckoning.
It was Reckoning. I think they called it the lights out, though, or something like that, or hit the lights right when he got called up to the main roster. They changed the name.
Yeah. I honestly, I can't even remember that now because it feels like so long ago. And the Judgment Day's over a year old now as well, which is crazy. I mean, I can't tell if it feels like longer or shorter, though, to be honest. But, Damian Priest, ever since I watched him on the Indies as Punishment Martinez, I believe it was.
Yes. Punisher Martinez.
Punisher Martinez. Yeah,
Punisher Martinez.
I think, yeah. He's not always been the most flashy guy, right? And it made him at times, dare I say, feel a bit bland in the Indies at times. I said it, but everything that he did looked very, very, very good. And that South of Heaven chokeslam, whoo, it looks very good indeed. He's always been somebody who's done that well, and his style suits WWE's main roster perfectly. And I could see him in line for a main event push. I could. I mean, I always talk about the age. I always say they need to be building up younger stars because they don't currently have that. They're in a current position where in about 10 years, 90% of their roster will be retired, which is very, very bad, especially compared to AEW. And I don't often give AEW the advantage like that. But when it comes to age, their roster, the mean average of their roster is a lot younger. But here's the thing, right? This entire Raw tournament, I think the average age I saw on Twitter is 30. The average age for this tournament is 42. That's bad.
That is bad.
That is bad. You have a tournament to crown a new world champion, and you have a tournament to build a new, create a new world champion for your brand, to build up new stars like they did with Finn Balor a few years ago. And the average age for the tournament's 42. It's bad. Like I said, Braun Breaker call-up would have made a lot of sense. That would have put the age down a lot. The youngest person in the tournament is Seth Rollins, who turns 37 next month, which it's not great. It truly isn't. Actually, let me double check very quickly Damian Priest's actual age here. He is 40 years old. So I mean, listen, he's got a few years in him, but like I say all the time, there can always be an exception to the rule. There always can be, and I said this for LA Knight. They can be. I think LA Knight might be a couple of years too old to be the exception. But that's a side note, and Kobe's not here to argue me today, so I won't go into it. But there can be exceptions, and maybe Damian Priest could be an exception. But for the most part, the people who you need to be pushing into the main event position need to be younger stars. They do. AEW have finally understood it now, and they've been doing a great job over the last, since Brawl Out, basically, building their younger stars. Something I've given them a lot of praise for. But WWE, I kind of thought they were doing it well with NXT 2.0. Even though the product wasn't that good, they developed a lot of young stars very quickly. But they just don't seem to be calling many of them up. Braun Breaker, Carmelo Hayes. Whichever one of them you want to make the champion, call the other one up and do it now. That's how it should be. They should have. They shouldn't have even had, like I said earlier on the show, Braun Breaker should not have even had that second chance. He should have just been called up right away because they need younger stars on Raw. But Clark, what's your thoughts on this? Do you think I'm looking into the age thing too much, or do you think that WWE is looking like they're in a position in 5-10 years where 90% of their roster's retired?
I think it's interesting. I think a lot of what you said makes perfect sense, and I do agree with a lot of it. At the same time, veterans working with younger talent is so important for bringing younger
There's no
talent
younger
along
talent.
and all of that as best they can. The greener, the newer talent, right? Even if it is a Damian Priest at 40, right? Who changed his body, right?
Yeah.
In his 30s. And so he's a younger 40 than, you'd project he's got a good 8 to 15 years left in him. If he takes care of himself the way that he has, right? And in the same point, my only fear with overbooking towards the younger talent is it makes things too predictable. And that is something that I don't want to see. So if LA Knight can get a big push as an older guy and being the hardcore fans that we are, that is shocking in a way because it's so often discussed, right? And it's such a almost trope in wrestling from time to time where it's like, oh, you got to get bring the younger guys along and they always got to go over. They don't always have to go over. And obviously we're going to talk about it later, but I loved watching the old veteran show you what monster heel work looks like last night, screaming into the camera and decimating the younger guy. And sometimes that's necessary. And we don't see enough of that either. I wouldn't mind seeing that out of a young monster. Bronson Reed, more of that.
But he's not young either.
He's not
40.
young, but I mean, just any of the younger, bigger guys. Wardlow on the AEW side.
Take that back. He's 34, Bronson Reed. So he does have
he's in his prime
left at least,
right?
Yes,
yeah,
he is. But it's a case of listen, for hardcore fans, and this is something which a lot of people don't understand. For hardcore fans, yeah, sure. If Damian Priest now wins maybe he's a bad example. I'll use LA Knight as the example. LA Knight now wins the WWE Championship. Oh, that's brilliant. We all know who he is. We've been watching him for the last couple of years on NXT and now on the main roster. Everyone knows who he is. What do you call it? It makes a lot of sense. He's been on the roster longer than blah, blah, blah was when they first won their championship. Here's the thing. For him to be known in the mainstream, it would take about at least 5 years for him being in the world title picture. By that time, LA Knight will be 50 or 49. So, okay, now he's mainstream. He's 49 years old. He's got a couple
45,
years left.
Remember, he's younger than you remembered. He's 40.
Is he 40?
Yeah, he's 40.
Oh, no, okay, that's not as bad as I... Wait, what, really?
Yeah, he's 40.
So
I promise. Maybe 41 at worst.
Oh, you are right. He's 40.
Yeah, he's 40.
But let's say
45. I'm like, of all of them, he's in it.
45, right? He's 45 years old.
Batista.
He's in. Yeah, there have been exceptions over the years. There have been. But the thing is, this entire roster, people are saying, is an exception right now. This is the point I'm trying to get across. Maybe you could do an LA Knight. Also, he is a couple years younger than I thought as well. I thought I had it wrong more than I did.
No,
but
you're good.
Yes, LA Knight could be an exception. So could Damian Priest. But you can't have everybody be that exception.
Totally agree.
It's one or the other, to be honest.
Here's the only other thing I would present to you, Ben, to make you more comfortable too is, let's look, we got a lot of young talent on the indies in AEW, and people every year are born, and there's just new talent every year. And so if there's a big wave of young talent, that's something that we're likely to see, right? And the key is you need inspiration. And so seeing Roman Reigns have success, seeing Batista, seeing Stone Cold, seeing all the crossover, John Cena, of course, can't leave out, right? Seeing all these wrestlers have success is only going to inspire the next generation, right?
It's true, but all the names you just said were in the WWE by their mid-20s.
I know.
So here's the thing, right? It's all well and good saying, young people, there's tons of good young talent in the indies right now. Well, okay, but if WWE doesn't sign them until they're 30, they don't get called up until they're 35, then what? they get pushed. It takes them 2 years to get in the main event scene, so they're 37. Then once they're in the main event scene, to become a mainstream star, like it's taken Roman Reigns actually over 5 years. But to become a mainstream attraction, it's usually 5 years. Okay, now they're 42. Oh, great. So they're making a lot of money for you now. But they have to retire in a couple of years.
Yeah.
Like, and if they want to then go to Hollywood, they'll basically retire right away and just go to Hollywood because that's the only chance they got to do it.
I don't know, dude. Batista's still kicking in Hollywood.
But Batista's Batista's the exception. You can't have everybody be the exception.
No, but at the same time, I don't know the age thing. I also think that 30s are the new 20s, kind of in general.
I think 30
population
is prime.
wise.
30 years old on your 30th birthday, if you debut on Raw, perfect, right? The reason I'm saying about
33. What about 33, 34?
Oh, nah, because look, Seth Rollins,
Tom Brady
Roman
won a
Reigns,
Super Bowl
all
at
these
like
guys
44.
were mid-20s.
It's a new world. Tom
John
Brady won a Super
Cena
Bowl at like 44. 43.
There's exceptions there, but also there's different because you don't have to worry about drawing power in the NFL. It's
and there's no bigger draw than Tom Brady, though.
Choose something. That's yeah. I know, but he's also been there for years. That's why he was in his. Here's something crazy, right, Clark? Bray Wyatt is younger by nearly 3 years than anybody who was in that tournament last night.
No. That's absurd.
And sorry, not on that tournament last night, on Friday too.
Really?
Yeah. That's how bad. The youngest person in the tournament is about to turn 37, and that's Seth Rollins. He's the youngest. 30, about to turn 37.
That is wild.
Average 42.
Yeah.
I mean, Edge isn't helping the average, and obviously that's somebody who's a veteran helping out, doing an amazing job.
Yeah.
But they need to create younger stars, and they need to do it now. But rant over anyway. Let's go on to the next triple threat, which was Finn Balor versus Cody Rhodes versus The Miz. This was a decent match, but the big story about it was Cody Rhodes was doing well, and Brock Lesnar comes out of nowhere, takes him out, puts him through a table with an F5. Fantastic. They're keeping Cody away from the World Championship. I couldn't be more happy because obviously I want him to finish the story with Roman Reigns. So great stuff. Finn Balor wins. Perfect all round for me. The match wasn't anything too special, but it did its job perfectly. What were your thoughts, Clark?
Before I get into how much I loved the Brock and Cody stuff, The Miz always blows me away at how underrated he is. He was awesome in this match. He was awesome in this match, and not to be overlooked. He was awesome before the match, cut a great promo right before the entrance, and The Miz deserves his flowers while we still have him. He's great. Now, Brock decimating Cody. Oh, I loved it. That cut looked so nasty. He's like foaming at the mouth, screaming into the camera, standing over the lifeless body. Oh, and then when he dropped the line, what do you want to talk about on him? It tickled me. It was so great. It was the bully like, how's your stupid catchphrase now, buddy? Oh, it was awesome. I loved it. What do you want to talk about? Oh, I loved every second of it. The only problem for me is I need Cody to come back with something really good so that I'm not that terrible wrestling fan that roots for the heel in this one, because I loved it so much. It was such great heel monster work. I enjoyed every second of it. Both F5s, just awesome.
Oh, it truly was an awesome beatdown by Brock. I still hate the fact they're doing a rematch because, I mean, Cody won. It's an entire mess. And we got number one Superfly over on YouTube in the comments saying, should WWE do Brock versus Cody in a submission or no holds barred? They keep saying a fight. So I think it's going to be, I think it's going to be no holds barred.
Pit fight.
I wouldn't mind that.
Brock
I would not
and
complain.
Cody in a pit fight.
I would not
please.
Complain. Well,
that's what he was asking for. Fight pit. Sorry, in a fight pit. Yeah, pit and whatever that one is.
I'd like
that is what I want. Is the fight pit between those two.
Brock Lesnar off the top.
F5 off the top.
Oh, actually, that could happen. I could see that happening.
F5 off the top.
But
Knockout.
I certainly could see that one coming. But yeah, of course, then Finn Balor won, moved on to the main event, which was Finn Balor versus Seth Rollins. And what did I say about this tournament the other day? I said it reminded me a lot of the Universal Championship tournament. And what was the final of the Universal Championship tournament?
That was Seth Rollins and Finn Balor.
And on the Raw final last night, they did Seth Rollins versus Finn Balor. And just like in 2016, actually, I was about to say just like in 2016, both won their triple threat matches. Rollins actually got a bye. But Finn Balor once again went the triple threat route. But this time, Balor was not victorious, although he did hit a buckle bomb on Seth Rollins, so he got his revenge there. But Seth ended up getting that victory. And Seth is one step closer now to that World Championship. Now, truthfully, I am I wouldn't say worried, but I have a feeling they're going to swerve us and someone from SmackDown is going to win, and they're going to do the trade of switching Cody over for Cody to finish the story and all of that. I really hope, even though it's slightly obvious, they just have Seth win it. And yes, I know some fans were turning on, which I can't believe. Literally, 1 week in, he's won like 2 matches in 1 week for the first time in ages. And suddenly fans are turning on Seth Rollins again. But it's happening again. The internet last night was starting to turn on Seth Rollins. But Seth Rollins deserves it. Worst case, you can turn him heel. He's a great heel, perhaps a better heel. And then they'll start rooting for him again and you'll turn him face. It's the same thing throughout his entire career. But Seth deserves this now. He really has. Otherwise, he's going to finish, even though he's got another decade in him, I'm just worried he's going to end up finishing his career with less accolades than he deserves. Because he is so good. He really is. Everything he does is just phenomenal. From in-ring to outside of the ring to reinventing himself. Dare I say the best since Jericho reinventing himself. I really hope he wins this tournament. But what about you, Clark? Are you hoping for a Seth win?
I hate to totally agree with you, but yeah, I really think Seth's the logical choice. I've kind of been, I hate to saying it from the beginning, but I said that. I mean, even as far back as before they introduced the new title, I want him to beat Cody to the punch and bring back the Winged Eagle. That was what I wanted, 6 months ago. Right. And I think now's the time to give him his flowers. It's time to crown him. And absolutely. And I think it was kind of a cool nod to Finn Balor being the first Universal Champion last night to put him in the main event. And they put on a fun match and I enjoyed it for sure. As far as the turning on Seth, I don't get that. I get the turning on we've discussed earlier, but I do not get the turning on with Seth. I don't get it at all.
Oh, gosh. Well, here's the thing, right, Clark? It's a Raw show, and there was, of course, because he's been drafted to SmackDown now, no Austin Theory last night, so you don't have to go on a rant today.
Thank goodness.
So you're all good on that one. But
Best.
Something which I'm interested to hear your thoughts on was the Trish Stratus segment. Of course, Trish Stratus came out last night after handing out missing posters for Becky Lynch, despite the fact that Trish has basically been missing since she took out Becky because she's only been on one Raw. But anyway, Trish showed up on Raw. Did a thing where she was like, oh, she was talking and then Becky was going to come out, apart from it wasn't Becky. Trish tricked everybody. And then the theme actually hit and she was like, no, guys, the joke's over now. And then Becky was actually there in the ring with her and Becky took her out and all of that stuff. It was a little bit corny, it was, but Trish played the role well. It's a fun feud, and it's a fun feud which is in the women's division, which isn't for a championship, which is something I'll always be happy about. I don't think there's enough of those mid-card women's feuds. So yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. Slightly corny, slightly cheesy. But for what it was enjoyable. But what did you think, Clark?
Well, I got to ask you first, what did you think about the way Becky's promo went? I felt like that was odd, too, when she took the microphone. The way it was cut off and stuff. I don't know.
I feel like maybe they were short on time. I don't know. Maybe they're just trying to do it as in they just want to make
goofy,
it quick.
But I love Trish as a heel, total bully, and I love the Becky getting one over on her and surprising her. I like the segment as a whole for sure. I like the rivalry as a whole. yes, it was a little bit corny, but at the same time, I have no issue with that. I don't mind if you're gonna go corny and it's two legends. It's kind of like it's okay sometimes because, and I would consider Becky Lynch a legend at this point, essentially, even though
Yeah.
she's
Oh, she's
active,
gonna
right?
be
Like
headline Hall of
sometimes
Fame.
I'm easier to let that kind of stuff slide, the corniness, the shenanigans like that, because it's you just don't get that often, right? And especially when it's generational like that, it's a dream match at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
It's Trish Stratus versus the Becky, like and so overall, I enjoyed the segment enough that it was fine with me. I didn't have any major problem with it. I was just confused by a few things. I thought.
Yeah, and I mean, here's the thing: I'm always happy to see a mid-card women's feud, which isn't for a championship. I love to see that. Love to see it getting attention. I mean, I kind of wish there was a championship feud going on at the same time as it on Raw, which there didn't really seem to be anything built for that last night. And also, it's still named the SmackDown Women's Championship. I mean, at least they haven't called it the Raw one yet, but it's not a hard solution. It just isn't. Literally, rename the belts. Not like go Raw SmackDown. Rename it, or the World Women's Championship, or the WWE Women's Championship, whatever.
Universal
And then just,
on the other side.
yeah, I mean, it's a really easy solution. Give them a new belt design. Keep the title history the same. She used to get Bianca's reign. You're not switching the Raw and SmackDown names around. And guess what? Then if in a future draft they switch brands, you're not going to have this issue, which they've now had 3 times.
100%.
It's an easy solution, and I'm really, really getting frustrated with it.
I'm with you on that.
I feel like everything we're saying on this show at the minute, they're doing the opposite of. But, oh well. Let's hope maybe. My hope is, and maybe I'm getting my hopes up a bit too much, that the reason that they haven't just done a title switch here is because they are going to change they're just waiting for the new titles to be designed or something like that. That's my hope, but who knows? Another thing I didn't like on last night's Raw was one of my favorite tag teams, Imperium, losing again. So Imperium came out backstage last night and they were saying the ring general will be here next week. All of this stuff, and then they go and say it to Sammy and Kevin. Sammy and Kevin weren't really having any of it. It was quite a funny segment actually, but it kind of made Imperium seem a little bit like a comedy act, which is a bit confusing considering Gunther is literally the opposite of that. But oh well, right? Maybe it was just, you could say, oh, it's just that segment. The match with Sammy and Kevin wasn't as bad as the Street Profits match where they were literally squashed on SmackDown. But Sammy and Kevin quite comfortably beat them. Why in the same week have Imperium lost to Street Profits and Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens in fairly short matches? What have they done to upset Triple H? They're a top tag team. The tag team division needs top tag teams right now. Imperium and Sami and Kevin's a feud which you really could have built up. I mean, if McIntyre comes back, you could have thrown McIntyre with Kevin and Sami as their baby faces. That sounds like a common WWE thing to do. And have Drew feud with Gunther again, while you have Sami and Kevin feud with Imperium. It would have been a good feud, or anybody like that. You could insert any baby face with Sami and Kevin. But instead, they just squash an Imperium.
I got to say this. I have a totally different perspective because it's funny. Okay. I did not expect you to go that route, but I was watching last night with my dad at this point, and he only watched about 45 minutes of the show, and he was getting ready to go to bed. He'd just taken the dogs outside and came in, watched the match. Old school wrestling fan, knows Kevin and Sammy, doesn't really know Imperium very well, and he's hearing the ring general for the first time. All of that as they're walking in on the segment. Stops, looks at the TV, and goes, "Who are these guys?" I'm like, "Oh, they're Imperium. They're Gunther's, kind of guys." And he goes, "Oh, I know him. Like I remember from, a few matches I've seen." Yeah, no. He's like, "Okay." And then they get to Sammy and Kevin, and he's kind of giggling at the exchange. And at the very end, KO snuck in, like, he says general weird. And my dad totally popped. Stayed awake.
Kevin Owens is so great.
He's so great. Stayed awake to watch the match and totally enjoyed it, and goes, those Imperium guys are really good as a tag team. I did not expect them to be like, so they're in that group with Gunther. And
But
I was
why
like,
waste it?
wait a minute. Now I go to you and I might have felt like more of a waste. I'm like, yeah, the Imperium does this every week. They're awesome every week. And whether they're booked to win or lose, they look great. Right.
Yeah.
And so to you or I, it felt like a waste, but I'm like, wait a minute. Now all of a sudden my dad's like, I like these dudes. The gimmick's good. The in-ring work's good. I got to see more of them, even despite the loss. So I don't think it was a throwaway for total, right? Total engagement, because if that was your first experience with them, the gimmick came through, the in-ring acumen came through, and then the link to Gunther came through. And I mean, what more could you really ask out of a segment that was likely pressed for time on a show with 2 triple threat matches and a main event?
Yeah, that's what I mean? Great point. It truly is. I mean, I still feel like, though, if the segment was that entertaining, which it was entertaining, like I said, it was a little bit making them seem slightly like jokes. But at the end of the day, that's always going to be the main roster, right? As long as they're not acting like that when Gunther's around.
But see, I'll say this, though. Both Kaiser and, why am I blanking on
Fabian Eichner?
Fabian Eichner, yes. Both of them looked serious and not happy about the jokes that Kevin and Sammy.
No, yeah. But they were the butt of the joke, if you want. But yeah. I didn't have an issue with that really. If it was like, I don't know, they built it up for a few weeks' time, or they really built the feud, or even they had a much longer match, or or Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens got a little bit of a lucky win, like a roll-up or something, which... And actually,
thank you. Yes,
Josh has just corrected me in the comments, because it's Giovanni Vinci now, not Fabian Eichner. And Josh is also in the YouTube comments saying he's got to get on the show sometime. Absolutely.
Yes.
And also he's saying give Imperium the belts, and I could not agree more with that. But yeah, you could have had Sami Zayn win by a roll-up or something. Not like to make Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens look weak, but just to make it seem like a little bit lucky for once. And then down the line, you could run it back. Once Gunther's back or whatever as well, you could run it back. It would have made a lot more sense, and it would have built them well while still achieving the exact same thing. But instead, they've lost clean twice in 4 days. One time of which was literally a squash match against the Street Profits.
That made no sense.
I don't know. Please don't do my boys dirty with Imperium. Please do not. But Gunther is coming to Raw next week, guys, so be scared. He's someone who's a main event talent, but like you said earlier, Clark, he's also an Intercontinental Champion. So that doesn't really fix the solution of...
Doesn't help us much.
No. I mean, they need a Braun Breaker call-up, and they need a build. This would have been the perfect time. I'm not going to keep on going on about it, but Raw has no other choice. They have no other choice but to develop stars right now. They need to split Braun and Ricochet up, have Braun go on a heel run, have him feud with Seth Rollins as a heel. Maybe even have McIntyre return as a heel if he does return. Because obviously it's public knowledge now that McIntyre's contract's up at the end of this year. And we don't know where he is. It's very weird. But if McIntyre does return, which I'm really hoping for, that's very, very much an option. A heel McIntyre versus Seth Rollins. So then there's a couple of options at that point, but you need to get to that point. Until that's only 2. It's probably not going to be enough for a year. We're going to have to build up some people for these big pay-per-view matches, because again, Roman Reigns isn't on every pay-per-view, so Seth Rollins or whoever the world champion is going to need to sell some of these pay-per-views. So we are going to need some good feuds. But that pretty much brings us to the end of today's show, guys. Thank you very much for watching and listening. If you're watching on YouTube, please give us a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And give us a cheeky comment down below as well. They really help us out. If you're over on Spotify, a 5-star and a follow helps us out massively. Me and Clark will be back here tomorrow, the same time, where we'll be previewing tomorrow's AEW Dynamite and talking about any other news that breaks. And also joining us tomorrow, we will have Chaos. So yeah, guys, it is going to be a banger of a show tomorrow. And thank you guys for watching next time.